Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. And David, thanks for having me. And more important, thank you for letting me copy your homework over the years. Allowed me to graduate from Campion. So I appreciate that. Okay, I'm used to normally walking the stage. I'm a prowler, but I'll have to sort of stay here absent that. All right. So cloud is often pitched as the single solution to all of your IT ailments, like a magic potion. All right. And the shift to cloud has been driven by a simple and very powerful narrative, right? Flexible resources, low operating costs, and a culture of innovation, right? That allows the resource to be freed up to work on pressing business needs. And this storyline has created a dominant single industry narrative that cloud is great, and it is, but it's just not for everything. And so in my remarks today, I'm going to be talking about how best to adopt cloud and kind of my thinking around how to adopt cloud. But before I do so, let me also talk about some of the secular trends I see in IT right now. Is this okay? Here we go. All right. So in a seminal Wall Street Journal article more than 10 years ago, Mark Andreessen, who is the chief executive of Andreessen Horowitz, which is a VC firm in the Bay Area, made a bold assertion that software is eating the world. And eventually, every company will become a software company offering some kind of services. Now, why would he make such a bold claim? Well, you have to look around you and see the rise of successful companies, the Googles, Amazon, the Netflixes, etc. Uber has created transportation as a service industry. Amazon does deliver anything as a service. Even construction workers nowadays can get their plans delivered on site, right? And so most of these valuable companies, they are software companies. Software is what creates value today. And so if you are not writing the software that makes customers want to come back for more, right? Let me assure you of one thing. Somebody out there is already thinking about that. How to steal your customers, how to bury you. Okay. And if you don't take that as kind of a call to action, you're not going to survive. Okay. Don't be overly impressed with your size or your market share or incumbency. It doesn't mean anything. I'll talk about a few examples where people who felt that way are no longer with us today. Because the truth is, if incumbency was the only thing that mattered, we'd all be using Microsoft smartphones today. Right? Innovation matters a lot. So let me talk about a couple of secular trends, the second secular trend here. That's digital transformation. And this represents both an existential threat and an opportunity for your business. How it turns out, it's up to you, right? So what is digital transformation? It's really a way of using digital technologies to create new or sometimes modify existing business processes, culture, customer experience, okay? You have to reimagine a business to provide an outcome that your customers just can't wait to rip the product out of your hands. That's when you have something special. You know when you have something special? When the customers can't wait to rip your product out of your hands, then you have something special. And you may say, so what? Who cares? Well, let me tell you why you should care. You could get wiped out. Let me give an example. In 2001, Borders Books, ever heard of them? Okay. They made a fateful decision. They outsourced their online book sales to Amazon on the premise that it was not strategic. Oops. They were wiped out by Amazon. Wiped out, right? You know, taxes have fallen prey to Uber. CDs have been decimated by streaming media. They have all succumbed to the relentless onslaught of digital transformation. To put it in perspective, notice 90% of the Fortune 500 companies that were around 60 years ago aren't here anymore. Fortune 500 companies. And half of them have been gone in just the last 15 years. Okay? So the lesson is clear. You innovate or you die a slow, painful death. Okay. Anybody recognize this? I showed this picture to a few people in the audience before my talk. And in my decidedly unscientific poll, about 30% of you admitted this looked like yours and wondered how I got a picture of it. And the other 70% of you lied. Okay. CIUs need innovation to drive the business, right? And engineers and developers need time to go on and do this. But the prevailing IT infrastructure of the past 30 years has been nothing more than a complicated mix of servers, storage boxes, fiber channels, switching, and storage and so forth. And that sort of multi-vendor, multi-box scenario has created a horrible environment of, impossible troubleshooting, inflexible scaling, and just a never-ending cycle of buying, patching, building, and so forth. That doesn't really add a lot about the business, but takes a lot of time with the industry. And it's actually this problem of too many boxes that actually created the opportunity for Nutanix to hyperconverge and simplify them. Here's the other reality, right? This complexity keeps us in a disproportionate amount of spending time to tend and care to infrastructure, right? And so roughly 80% of our time is spent doing infrastructure things, right? Just keeping the lights on. And while this is necessary, it doesn't add much value to the business at all. And remember the CIO was asked in the prior slide, where's my innovation? Help me grow and transform the business. How do you do that? You only have 20% of your time left to do that. Can't do it, right? And it's no wonder that IT has said, you know what, forget this. I'm going to create a shadow IT organization. I'm going to find someone. Look, I have a simple rule when I run my business. You'll either help me get my job done or you won't. And if you won't help me get my job done, I'm going to find somebody who will. And that's kind of how most people think about this, right? IT has to sort of think about how to evolve and align itself with the business needs. So, I mentioned that all companies need innovation to survive and to grow. And more than ever, need it from IT departments. All of you in the room who are IT practitioners, this is your task. This is your mission. This is your mantra, right? How do you start delivering real business value? You have to improve your operational capabilities. You have to improve your skill. You have to get a seat at the table. So if you think about this sort of simple framework I have here, right? We'll call it the maturity framework. Most IT organizations are squarely in the lower left, okay? Where you have limited skill sets, you have a reliance on legacy systems, and you're generally producing little or no business value. And so the unfortunate thing is that most C-levels view IT in this case as a necessary evil. That's an unfortunate place to be. Nobody wants in that place, right? You're actually viewed as an impediment to the business. But other orgs have moved up the stack, right? They have benchmarked, they've adopted industry best practices, they achieve parity with the competition. And then a select few actually take it a step further and become best in class, at which point IT starts supporting the business strategy. And then they're the real disruptors, the ones who have fully embraced digital transformation, have redefined what is possible, and have done things like what Uber has done for the transportation industry. So Uber is a software company masquerading as a transportation one. Home Depot, one of our large customers, the software company just happen to sell home improvement stuff. Okay? All of the action, all the value is done in software. So I want to sort of share this one with you because several of Nutanix customers have transformed their business in partnership with Nutanix. So here are a couple I want to sort of draw a note to. Mike Shanko, who is a CIO of Blue Yonder. Blue Yonder is a $1.3 billion supply chain software company. And Rob Mills, who is the CIO of Tractor Supply Company, which is a $13 billion retail company. They both received, CIO of the Honors Years in partnership with Nutanix. So there's an old saying, right? You don't get fired for buying IBM. That may still be true these days, I suppose. But you get promoted when you buy Nutanix. And so in response to these industry trends, I've painted a pretty bleak picture of the challenges IT faces, right? And by now you're probably wondering, man, what the heck do I do? Right? What do we do? What me to do? Right? What should you do in response to these innovation realities, transformation realities, competitive threats, and perhaps board and senior management mandates? Remember, your company's survival could be at stake. Right? There's no such thing as too big or too important to fail. Just ask Blockbuster or Border. Okay. So here's a fairly typical response I've seen. Let me illustrate it with a somewhat apocryphal story of a oil platform in the North Sea that caught fire. Now, despite some recent news, you should know that the oil industry has an enviable safety record. Very good. Okay. And so workers are drilled over and over again what to do when there's a fire. And what you do is you go to the helicopter pad, and the helicopter will whip you off there in 2 minutes or less. Okay. In this story, the rescue helicopter had mechanical problems and was late. And every one of the people there who stayed on the platform waiting for them died, except one. This person jumped in the water and was rescued by a boat. And they interviewed him afterwards and said, why did that? You've been trained over and over again to wait for the helicopter. So, well, boss, it was a Jamaican guy, it turns out. It's my story. Says, I looked at the wall of fire coming to me, and I looked down 200 feet into the water, and I chose probable death over certain death. And this is often used as a rallying cry for we have to go to cloud, and we have to go now. But it's a zero-sum game way of thinking, right? Either or. So I'll come and talk in a minute. Cloud is not always the answer to everything. There are workers that should run in the cloud, run them. And the workers that should run on-prem, you should run them there too. So let me then also draw your attention to the issue of decision-making. There's an old saying, you've heard this before, to a man with a hammer, every problem is a nail. You guys know Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger is the guy behind Warren Buffett's success. Probably as old as Warren Buffett, 80 or 90 odd years old. Very smart, seasoned investor. He says, this way of thinking is a perfectly disastrous way to think and a perfectly disastrous way to operate in the world. You need multiple models. And the models you have come, and the models have to come from multiple disciplines because all the wisdom in the world is not to be found in one solution, no matter how you may want it to be. Every solution has trade-offs. You have to really get at it and study the problem from different angles to really get at the right solution. And to illustrate this point, I'm going to do the audience participation part where I want you to take a look at this and think about how you'd answer it. All you know is a man, or could be a woman too, matter, takes out a business loan, starts a company, and goes bankrupt. Why? David, why? What's that? Okay, all right. Mr. Richards. Why do you think it failed? Management, okay. Any other viewpoints? Madam in the red dress. Poor investment and management. Okay. So look, the answer depends on, somebody want to fix this here while I'm talking, please? This is dropping. Okay, cool. The answers you get will depend on your area of expertise. If you're a business analyst, you might say, the business didn't work because he was a bad leader, or the strategy was wrong, or too much competition, or the market was too small. If you're a marketer, you might think market and sales campaigns were poorly thought of and poorly executed. If you're a financial expert, you might wonder, did they get the right loan, right interest rates? If you're a writer, you might think, it sounds like a Greek tragedy. I wonder if I can make a bestseller out of this. If you're a socialist, you might think it's a failure of capitalism. The point is, which is the correct viewpoint? all of them or none of them at the same time, right? If you take your problem to an expert, don't expect the best solution. Expect an answer that's consistent with the expert's experience, okay? And this is not unusual. It's not unusual. If you ask someone to solve a particular problem, they'll solve it using tools and experience that they bring to the table. It's so common. The French have a phrase for it. It's called déformation professionnelle, or cognitive bias, if you like. I have never met a surgeon who doesn't want to solve every medical problem with a scalpel. Okay? And the point is that your bias and experiences that you have frames your point of view and restricts your thinking. You become a prisoner of your own thinking of how to approach your problem, right? And this is made worse when you have time pressure or well-meaning mandates like we have to go to the cloud. Okay? Because when you only see problems from one angle, it's not accurate and limits your ability to get a really good solution. You need a different and thoughtful perspective, not conventional wisdom. And so then you come to kind of a crossroads. Quo vadis, history behind that. That means, where am I going? So my mother, bless her soul, she taught English, French, Spanish, and Latin for many years. And she made us at home take Latin. In our spare time, she forced us to learn Latin too. So I pop with these Latin phrases now and then, so I apologize for that. Customers have a critical decision to make. And it's usually framed as a choice, apple or orange, between public and private cloud, or if you like, patty and cocoa bread, right? But remember that one is not necessarily universally better than the other, just different. Okay? Private cloud generally offers better performance for latency sensitive apps, better security and lower ongoing costs, although you have to have higher capital costs outlay, right, to get it going. Whereas public clouds, you have infinite scaling and OpEx model, et cetera, that you like. So there's a third option. We can have the best of both. We call it hybrid multi-cloud. This combines the best of public cloud and the best of private cloud. And I purposely frame this discussion as an either or to illustrate the trap that even the smartest of us fall into. And that's the trap of false choices. Okay. Sometimes when you're faced with two compelling choices, sometimes it's not a choice. Sometimes the answer is both. Okay. You know, as a entrepreneur, and I've been in 5 startup companies, you often asked, should I have perseverance or should I be flexible? Because you have to stick with the idea against all the people who say can't be done, shouldn't be done. You have to stick with it. But you also have to be flexible enough to say, if nobody's paying for it, I need to change. And those kind of things are complete at odds with each other, but you need both. Okay, you need both as well. And so this brings me to my main conclusion. Right? Cloud is not a destination. It's an operating model. And it's one that plays an essential role in enabling IT for every organization. What you want is to balance business agility on one side with the cost, governance, security, and performance on the other. So increasingly, this means embarking on a journey to the hybrid cloud, a mixture of public clouds, we call multi-cloud, and private cloud on-prem infrastructure that best serves your IT needs by extending the cloud experience across the enterprise. Let's go back and revisit that move to cloud again. The benefits, as I mentioned, are readily apparent. Okay, by outsourcing infrastructure management to the cloud, IT teams can focus on what matters for the business. Applications can be deployed quickly, anywhere. You can acquire and provision infrastructure very simply and easily. You can avoid large capital outlays and lengthy lead times for hardware. You get updates all the time. It gets better and better. You have a consumption model CFOs love. It's not to like. You're done, right? Are we? Here's some reality of what's actually happening in public cloud. Most of the concerns are around unanticipated concerns around performance, cost, and security. Right? And the truth is that public cloud spending consumes an increasing percentage of IT's operating budget. Right? Gartner themselves have found that 80% of companies have and will experience cost overruns of up to 50%. That's a staggering statistic. Staggering statistic, right? Cloud benefits are often overstated and cloud migration costs are often understated. That's the reality, okay? And so to no one's surprise, IDC did a survey and found that 8% of the respondents are considering moving more than half their workloads back, repatriating back to on-prem very soon. Some have already done so. Dropbox and Apple are the two larger ones you may be aware of. So clearly, some of the major cloud selling points are being evaluated. Right? And so if I may paraphrase Kevin Spacey in The Usual Suspects, you guys may remember this note. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that public cloud was cheap. And so what's really going on here? What's really going on? Well, unlike Lord of the Rings, there is no one cloud to rule them all, okay? It turns out that neither on-prem nor public cloud can do everything that an enterprise needs, okay? They both have the strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes you need both. The laws of public cloud also govern kind of what you want to do, right? There's laws of physics, laws of economics, and laws of land. The laws of physics basically say that apps that have low latency requirements need to have the data next to them. Can't separate them by too far, okay? Laws of land have requirements around where data can and needs to reside. GDPR requirements in Europe, as an example, HIPAA requirements for patients. And the laws of economics, some workloads are clearly easier and sort of more cost-effective to run on-prem or in the cloud, depending which one it is. And you should run them where they make sense. But my favorite sort of how this has changed is a tweet from Oren Rogers, who I know quite well. He's one of the analysts at the 451 research industry. And you can see how customer sentiment has shaped AWS's view of the world. First, it was zero-sum game. Everything's going to the cloud right now. Then it was, okay, it's going to take a little longer. Then it was, hey, you love hybrid cloud? Me too. Then, hey, you know what? I have an on-prem offering you can buy too. So they themselves, the king of public cloud, has also realized that public cloud by itself doesn't have all the answers. And this is something you want to take into account as you think into your own cloud strategy, what makes sense. And so if you want to know the point of view of the cost of cloud, I would invite you to read a very interesting paper by Sarah Wang and Martin Casado of Andreessen Horowitz. You can tell one of my favorite VC firms, entitled The Cost of Cloud, $1 Trillion Paradox. And as I mentioned earlier, the public cloud, the shift to public cloud has been a very dominant narrative, right? Move there, all the right reasons. It's great, but it's not for everything, right? But what they have done is they've convinced a large swath of the audience, of people in the industry, that they are the only companies who can build scalable and cost-effective infrastructure. And by the way, you should be happy to use it and write your applications on it. Unless, of course, they decide to launch competitive products, which they have been known to do on occasion. And so in discussion with hundreds of diverse practitioners, they've discovered a consistent pattern. If you're operating at scale, the cost of cloud can at least double your infrastructure bill. And so they arrive at this startling paradox. It makes perfect sense to jump to the cloud for a lot of reasons. But if you stay there, you're nuts. And this is the paradox you kind of run into, right? One thing I will point out, some companies who have moved to the cloud through a mandate were gone, and they get the sticker price shock and they want to move back. They can't. You know why? Because the infrastructure team that they had that would know how to do it, it's not there anymore. So they're stuck. And being stuck and having lack of options, is a terrible place for any business to find themselves in. Okay, let's kind of talk about journey to the cloud. I'm going to use this relatively simple 2x2 framework, on-prem cloud and sort of VMs and containers. Most IT companies are squarely in the lower left, right? Here you're running legacy applications on VMs, right? Straightforward. And then you say, okay, I'm considering this cloud journey. Excuse me. Then you have some work to do, some thinking to do, hard thinking to do. You have to understand the entire ecosystem and landscape of your applications. Okay? Where can they reside? Where should they reside? Which apps do I keep on-prem? Which ones do I retire? Which ones to move? And there's a lot of other considerations, right? Like, do I keep the apps on-prem? Do I even want to be in the data center business? Maybe I want to use a hosted provider to do this for me. Some apps are better off being SaaS, like Office 365. That's a great application to consider using in the cloud. And so, okay, you decided you want to move the apps. Okay, you have lots of choices. Which ones I retain? If I retain it, maybe I want to modernize my IT stack and do it on a private cloud, maybe powered by HCI software. Maybe I want to do a lift and shift. Maybe I have a data center migration. Maybe my data center shut down. I want to move to the cloud temporarily before I decide to move somewhere else. Right? Lift and shift is possible and can be done relatively quickly. Or maybe you decide to refactor, to replatform, or maybe even rewrite your application in cloud native. Yeah. Turns out that these actually take a lot of time. Okay. These tasks are often trivialized. How hard is it? It's very hard, very expensive, and takes a long, long time. And then you have all the usual, when you get all the techies in the room looking at you, you have all the things about, do I need a specific OS or hardware to run this application on? Just a particular firewall. Are there performance things that you think about, latency and so forth? Software licensing, right? Azure is using their heft to give you better preferred pricing on SQL and OS365 applications on Azure than you would on Amazon, right? And so sometimes you want to be able to use different clouds for different reasons, right? There's all kinds of stuff, compliance and security and so forth. There's also the notion of lock-in, vendor lock-in. Now, let me pause here a sec. Is lock-in good or bad? Anybody say it's good? Okay, lock-in is neither good nor bad. Lock-in just is. Okay, like those of us, I have an iPhone, I'm locked into Apple's ecosystem. What lock-in really is a trade-off between the benefits I get and the switching cost. And in some cases, the benefits are so great, I'm willing to accept there's no switching cost. But not always. Optionality is a good thing, but sometimes lock-in's okay. You just have to decide if the value you get from it offsets it. It's actually one thing to think about. Okay, so when companies want to adopt multi-cloud, I want Azure for my O365, but I want Amazon for development. You know what that usually means? Different teams, different data, different applications, silos of teams. They don't talk, they just move. And so I'm kind of locked into each one. If you actually abstract tooling above that so that the same operational works across different clouds, then I can actually have the same team, a different one. So, you have to kind of think about lock-in through that lens. It's not necessarily good or bad. General flexibility is needed, desirable, and good. But if that's the case, you actually want a partner that can help sort of take the lock-in off the table. It's not good or bad, it just is. Okay, so I've made a case that enterprises should embrace multi-cloud. And this represents a new reality where organizations need multiple environments to develop applications to address a diverse range of use cases, right? So there are many such clouds. The public clouds, the Azure, the GCP and AWS and so forth. Private, these are usually on-prem built with HCI software. Or you have distributed edge. That's becoming much more important now as IoT sensors get there. Look, the industry works in pendulums. Okay, you guys remember mainframes that got disrupted by client server, and now we've gone to distributed computing. And now what cloud is? Those big data centers, that's a new mainframe these days. What's going to disrupt that? Edge and IoT. So then we're going back this other place again, right? So nothing lasts forever in tech. You can be sure of that, right? All these clouds are used by different applications and managed by different teams, right? But here's the catch. The data is generally not portable across the cloud. You can't move things between clouds, even if you wanted to. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's another silo. This time, the problem has shifted from silos of infrastructure, which has been largely solved by HCI, to islands of clouds. That's today's problem. How do you solve that one? And so the ideal solution, in our view, is a hybrid multi-cloud one, right? Where the on-prem and edge solutions will be cloud-like and offer similar advantages to public cloud. And this can be achieved if you're running software using HCI from Nutanix. And so what this does, this software-defined approach, remember I talked about software being valuable. It's kind of what's valuable now, right? It allows you to abstract and consolidate the private and public cloud data and shared services into a single operating model. Okay? You can extend the capability and capacity of every cloud from one service to another. This allows true app mobility between clouds, across clouds, without rewriting the apps, without replatforming, and without retraining the workforce. The best of both worlds. That's a very, very powerful value proposition. So let me kind of summarize what we walked through here today so far. If you were to take a survey of business executives and ask them, what would they want for their business to run smoothly? You'd probably see a list similar to the following, right? You'd see more revenues, access to new markets, profitability, drive out risk and cost in mind, future-proof my investments. You want to build a culture of employees who are committed to the mission. Maybe you have some social and environmental goals you want to accomplish as well, right? As Mark Benioff, who is the CEO of Salesforce, said, it's possible to do well and do good at the same time. Both, not a choice. Okay? And digital transformation is critically important for achieving these objectives. And then you ask the question, okay, I know what the business wants. How does IT help? What's IT's role in transforming the business? Well, it turns out their charter is very straightforward, right? You need to integrate flexible and agile technologies that are in alignment and supportive of what the business needs. If you don't do that, you're an albatross, and you're back in that bottom square I showed you earlier, right? And generally, this means moving away from legacy systems and adopting cloud-like principles and practices. And so doing so enables both application and infrastructure modernization, both of which are foundational elements of digital transformation. Your final decision is then around who do you want to partner with in this journey? Okay? With Nutanix, we've got a trustworthy partner on Info Exchange that's completely committed to your success. We have a Net Promoter Score of 90 over the past 7 years in a row. Anybody know what Net Promoter Score is? Who doesn't know what it is? Anybody ever heard of Net Promoter Score? Who has not heard of it? Okay, no shame. Okay, cool. All right. So one of the things that marketers care about a lot is customer loyalty. It's a holy grail of marketing. Who are loyal customers? Okay. Why do you care about loyal customers? Because they buy a lot, they're your best advertising, okay, and they're very forgiving. This is why loyal customers, that's why you like them. But how do you find them? How do you know who's loyal? And a guy called Fred Reidenbach from Bain Consulting many years ago figured it out, okay? He coined this notion of Net Promoter Score. And the way you get at it is you ask customers a single question. Would you recommend your company products or services to a colleague? It's not a yes, no question. You answer on a scale from 1 to 10. Okay. If you answer 9s and 10, and 9 or 10s, you're called a promoter. I love your stuff. I can't wait to rip it out of your hands like Apple. I'm going to line up 4 weeks before the iPhone drops, so I can get it. That's a loyal customer. Then if you're 6 and below, you're a detractor. I can't stand this stuff. It is the worst thing I've ever had. Get out of here. And if you answer 7 and 8s, you're called passive. It's okay, but you can be sure I'm checking out something else. Okay. And the way you get Net Promoter Score is you take all the promoters, the 9s and 10s, you subtract the detractors, 0 to 6s, you get the Net Promoter Score. Here's the thing. The score can go from -100, everyone's a detractor, to +100, everyone's a promoter. Okay. You know where most cable and telecom companies are? Negative territory, -30. You know why? They're monopoly. There's no competition. They don't care. Well, if you happen to be in that business, good for you. But most of us are not in that business. We have to care because there's competition. Nutanix has had one for 90 over the past 7 years in a row. Our customers are extraordinarily supportive of our business. And so, making sure you have that partner who is completely committed to your success is like really, really important to get that right? Sometimes, we make decisions based on tech. Oh, we have this feature, check. But you know what you miss? You miss the support and the partnership angle. Okay, people buy from people. And you won't have somebody who's committed to your success. Not, well, I go, no, I'll get to it tomorrow. I don't run my teams that way. Right? I speak in very strong language about the importance of taking care of customers, right? No one left behind. Right? Your success is our success. And I'll tell you, if you can't bring that to the table, you don't end up working very long for a guy like me. I'll tell that right now. Okay. So We can help you create this consistent, simple cloud platform, right? No silos, no different teams, no tooling, no training. And a lot of our positioning and value is our own choice. We've given you choice of hardware platforms, choice of hypervisors. We think that should extend to choice of clouds. And so we provided or created a cloud enterprise platform that's simple, delightful, and gives the business stakeholders the freedom to innovate the tools they need, and also gives IT the control that they want. And I said, that's a very compelling value proposition. So let me kind of bring it in for a landing here. Here's this kind of summary, right, of what we talked about. Customers want the flexibility of choice of where and how to run their applications. And with the introduction of hybrid cloud tooling, the zero-sum game choice of public cloud versus private cloud, that's largely gone away. Okay, cloud lock-in is real. I spoke about it. Okay, if you're going to the cloud, check your contracts. Be very aware of any overly restrictive clauses in there. No one cloud is best at everything. Sometimes you want to use a cloud like for Microsoft licensing, only use Azure. Maybe one is Google for ML/AI. Right, they're really good at that. The clouds are different. Amazon is sort of developer cloud. Azure is kind of an enterprise SaaS, and Google is more ML/AI. They sort of all have things that they're generally good at. But the point is, you need flexibility to move these things as and when it makes sense to do so. Right? You should adopt a multi-cloud strategy to prevent lock-in, and also then provide best-of-breed IT solutions. Or maybe take advantage of cloud arbitrage. Maybe someone has a sale on compute for the next 6 months. I want to use that. Move your application over there. You should do that. And so we provide that flexibility and anti-lock-in, and you get meaningful business benefits to modernize your infrastructure and write and deploy your apps anywhere. This is true flexibility and innovation, and all while reducing costs and operating risk. Final slide. I want to talk about kind of the importance of and the difficulty of transformation. Look, digital transformation takes courage, takes commitment, and takes conviction. Right? Take a look at these two objects. What are they? Coal and diamond. Are they different? A chemist in the audience. Okay. They're both allotropes of carbon, so they're the same chemically. Of course, the ladies will clearly see the difference. Nobody wants a lump of coal around their neck. Get that? But coal was transformed into diamond by stress, but more technically correct, pressure and temperature. Stress is required to improve. Okay. When you exercise, you stress your body, stress your cardio, stress your muscles, stress your bones. And what do you get in return? You get fitter, you get stronger. When you study hard, you hurt your brain, right? But you get smarter, you know more. Digital transformation will stress your organization as well. I don't want to underestimate that. Don't lose sight of the people aspect of digital transformation. But in return, you get an organization that's 10 times better than it was, that it is right now. So here's the thing. If you do normal things, you get normal results. If you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. If you want extraordinary results, you have to set the bar high, really high. You have to make huge demands of yourself. That is what excellence demands of you. Look, there are diamonds in every organization. Your job as leaders is to find them. Thank you.